Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my name in the corner of my paper in Sharpie. Now I've created these tracers for my students to use. So go ahead and put your tracer in the middle of your paper. You don't want it too close to the top because if you're going to add details later, you might not be able to fit candles and decorations on the top of your cake. So I'm going to just move this down to the middle and I'm going to hold it carefully and trace around. Now I'm going to trace around the entire outside, and don't forget to do this little zigzag line. That part's important. Okay. Finish that. Alright, now there's a couple extra things we have to add before we start coloring with oil pastels. The first thing we need to do is connect these ends here to the side. So go ahead and do that on both sides. Alright, now it's not looking like a cake yet, but it will in a minute. So now we're going to add 3 lines that go straight down. And you're going to see these 3 points, 1, 2, 3. And those points are going to connect to these points at the bottom of the cake, 1, 2, 3. If you feel more comfortable doing it with a pencil, that's fine. So let me try that. I'm going to do... What helps me draw a straight line is I'm going to start with my pencil here and I'm going to look at this point to help me draw a straight line. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and outline that. Now, to make it look like the cake actually has a slice taken out of it, we're going to follow this parallel line at the bottom. So I'm going to make my cake have 3 layers. Now on the opposite side, you have to do the parallel lines going the other way, or the diagonal parallel lines. Okay, that kind of gives our cake some perspective and makes it look like the slice is going into the center of the cake. Alright, now the fun part is adding the decorations. Now sometimes kids like to maybe write a little message on the front of their cake. I'm just going to keep it simple and I'm going to do some candles. Now a lot of times what I see is kids make their candles just like that. Now to me that kind of looks like the candles falling off the edge of the cake. So to fix that, I'm just going to add another rectangle on the bottom to make my candle longer. Now it looks like the candle is sitting on the actual cake. Now I already outlined in Sharpie and I really didn't want that line there, but one little trick that I like to use is because candles already have lines on them anyway, I'm just going to make some lines on my candle to give it some detail. Now for a flame, I just kind of make a wavy line and there you have the fire on the top of the candle. Alright, so I'm going to give a couple more candles to give my cake some detail. And the last thing that I need is a little line for the table, because right now it just looks like my cake is floating. So I'm going to give a line on each side to make my cake look like it's sitting on a table. Okay, I'm going to quickly finish up this cake over here, and we're going to talk about some ideas for our oil pastels. Now the oil pastels can be pretty messy, and the reason I gave some of the students colorful paper is because the oil pastels actually look really cool on colorful paper, and you can use lighter colors on darker paper and vice versa, dark colors on light paper. All right, so I'm going to kind of do some experimenting before I start. So if you want to know what your pastel is going to look like before you start so you don't mess up, you can always test it on the back. So I'm going to test out and see what some blue looks like. Here I've got some tan. Here I've got some yellow. Okay, so now I know that the yellow's not so dark. One way to kind of fix that and to make the yellow stand out more is coloring some white and then doing some yellow over top of it. Now I made my yellow a lot lighter. Okay, so that's a little trick. Brightening up any color, if you put white first and then the color over top of it, it makes it a lot brighter. Oil pastels are also really fun to blend, and they're kind of like a soft crayon. All right, here's some pink. Maybe I'll do some white and pink. Now another thing that tends to happen is when the oil pastels are all in the same bag together, notice that the end of this is a little bit dirty. So before I start coloring, if you take a little piece of scrap paper and kind of color off some of that extra color on the tip, it's going to give you a nice clean pastel to work with. So now I just clean that off and I'm good to go. All right. Typically what I've noticed is that coloring the top and these two sides, it kind of gives it like a nice unified look. You can certainly add lots of designs, but I'm just going to kind of keep this simple. Now you can color as hard or as soft as you want with the pastels. It's kind of like up to you. Now I'm choosing not to color over the black lines because I still want those to show. I want my flame to be yellow, so I'm going to color back over that white with some yellow later. You can give your cake any type of flavor, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, anything you can think of to make it fun. I think I'm going to add some blue over top of my white to kind of do some light blue icing. I think that'll look nice with my purple paper. I'm thinking of doing a chocolate and a vanilla layered cake. So I'm going to do some tan and brown in a pattern. But like I said, this is your cake, so you can totally personalize it to the way you want it to look. Now it's really starting to look like a cake. You know what, sometimes you're going to have to peel this paper off, that's fine. Now all I have to do is add a color for the background and a color for the table.